Hello and welcome. Today we're answering your most asked questions about interpreting. I'm Mike Loader, and joining me is Polaron's director and founder Eva Hussain, as well as one of Polaron's project managers, Maika Vicente Navarro. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
No worries. All right, now this is actually very exciting for me to actually get into a bit more depth with you. So, what is interpreting, and what is the hallmark of a good interpreter? I'll start with you, Eva.
Thank you, Mike. You have dabbled in acting.
Mm-hmm.
Interpreting is like acting. We basically repeat words of other people, and the words of other people are a message. So usually there's a message that somebody wants to convey to another person, and they don't speak a common language, so the interpreter is the bridge, the communication bridge. But unlike you today, we're not able to prepare. We walk into a situation and we don't know what's going to happen and how people are going to react, what they're going to say. So it's a little bit unpredictable, I guess, but we convey messages from one language to another verbally.
It sounds very complicated because you've got to listen as well as speak.
Yeah, so let me tell you what happens in an interpreter's head.
Yeah.
So we hear it in a language that the person speaks. We store it in a part of our brain that stores short-term memory bits and pieces. Then we convert it to another language and we spit it out. So it's very fast. We're usually 3 seconds behind the speaker, and there's several different ways that you can do interpreting. One is, the conferences. I'm not sure if you've seen the film with Nicole Kidman called The Interpreter. So she was working in a conference setting with headphones and interpreting, high-level political discourse, I guess. And there's the other spectrum where interpreters essentially are in the community, working in hospitals, courts, community health centres, assisting people with communicating with service providers or other people that require common language. So essentially they make people linguistically present.
It's incredible to think that process is happening. I'll go to you now, Maika. Why should organisations only work with professional interpreters, I should say?
It's very important you use an interpreter. This person has the training and the experience required, because as Eva was mentioning, the interpreter not just listens, he has to convey a message into another language, and they need to take into account the different cultures, like the speaker culture and the audience culture. And this person has also a code of ethics that's also very important to reduce the risk of having cross-cultural miscommunication between both parties. Your professional interpreter is also a person who's highly trained, who takes courses constantly, they adapt, they know what are the best practices. So those are among the many different reasons why you should hire a professional person rather than your friends who happens to speak that other language.
It sounds like it goes beyond just learning a language and being able to speak it as well. There's sort of, like you said, cultural aspects to it. Eva, what's been the most memorable interpreting assignment that you've done in your time?
Many, but one that stands out is interpreting for the head of state. That was by far the pinnacle of my career. So that was the President of Poland, who was here in 2018. I know you're going to be able to see some photos with me, in action. But I was actually interpreting for the Australian side. So there were 2 interpreters. One, the Polish government brought with them all the way from Poland, and I was interpreting for the Prime Minister, for the governors, for really high level, pretty stressful. The highlight of that was, Mike, though, that I don't know if you know this, but when the head of states travel by car, traffic lights are turned off. So we got that cavalcade gets a free pass. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
But other than that, having a look in behind the scenes of what happens with such high level negotiations, I guess, or visits was really amazing, because you see, the Prime Minister, the President, but behind the scenes there's 30 people running around and doing things, and I would often be sitting to the side, so you can't even see me. And the other thing is that there was a lot of protocols around how to behave, what to do. So the President of Poland actually does speak English, but in a formal setting they are required to work through an interpreter. So that was something that I've waited for 20 years, and when it was the first state visit of a Polish head of state to Australia, so by far the highlight.
Is that what interpreters tend to go for when it comes to, you know, career highlights? Is it a prime minister or a politician, or are they that's the big event?
Look, I think interpreters have preferences. So some are more than happy to work at a community level. So we're talking courts or hospitals. I have always wanted, this was like my secret dream, but it was never going to happen basically because Poland is not such a big partner of Australia in terms of economy. So when it happened, I jumped on it. And I think, you know, different people you can specialize in different things.
Yes.
So a good interpreter, however, needs to interpret accurately. We don't censor, we don't take anything out, except if there's a war that may happen because of something somebody said. So we tend to kind of, but don't tell anybody.
Interesting, sort of the last line of defence when it comes to, you know, communication.
That might be your interpreter, yes.
Maika, I'll go to you again. What interpreting services does Polaron provide? It sounds like it's a lot more than you might first think.
So we provide a number of different interpreting services, from community settings on site with healthcare or court interpreting, to conference, to remote, which is the most common one at the moment due to different lockdown restrictions. But we also have a new app called Interpreter Now that we are starting to get out. This is a video app that Polaron has that will be available 24 hours, 7 days a week. We will be offering NATI certified interpreters online for people who require those types of services for settings like healthcare. Imagine a person who doesn't speak the language and they want to go to the doctor and they need someone to interpret the message from the doctor to the patient, from the patient to the doctor.
That's
those
incredible.
Types of things.
That's incredible to think that there's an application that you can use on your phone. I've used Google Translate a little bit, but this is really exciting to think that Polaron's got something on the way. Is it out at the moment? Yeah,
so we're in final stages of rolling it out, and we will have real people because with technology we're not quite there yet in terms of accuracy. But certainly things have gone online. You know, everything's gone online, so has interpreting. So we do need to provide services that are fast and there when you need them. So typically you'd book an interpreter 2 weeks in advance. However, if you're in an emergency situation in a hospital or aged care home or whatever it is, that interpreter is required there and then. So the Interpreter Now app that Mike has mentioned is for that, for people to get access to qualified interpreters very quickly.
Yeah. So Maika, back to you. What is the process of booking an interpreter depending on the event or need?
So you need to understand what languages are going to be required and what's the approximate time of the interpreting session. It's also very important that we understand the type of setting that we are going to have, because different settings have different technical requirements. Like, for example, conference setting, like Eva said, you might require a booth, might require some good microphones and headsets for your interpreters, whereas a phone call or a remote interpreting might have different settings, like a good internet or a good phone connection. And these are very important for the interpreter to know beforehand. Also, it's also very important for them to have as much information as possible about the session itself, what's going to be spoken about, are there going to be any questions, what type of questions, if there's a presentation, if they can have access to the presentation, that's better, because the more prepared they are beforehand, the better they can provide the service afterwards.
Really great rundown there. I feel like I'm learning so much. Maika, thank you so much for joining us on the discussion today, and I look forward to hearing more down the track.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. Be well. All right, Eva, give us a wrap up of today's discussion, just a quick summary of, there's a lot more that goes into it than you might think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, interpreters, I consider them essential service. They are the bridge, they are the connector between service providers and people who may be in a stressful situation anyway. They might speak some English, but when it comes to technical terms or, you know, health care, they would prefer to work with an interpreter, and our interpreters are highly qualified. They do come with many years of experience. But I would also say that Maika should be your best friend if you need an interpreter. Be on her side. She'll lay it out for you and make sure that the interpreter is in the right language at the right time, in the right way. So all the technical considerations she's mentioned are very important, because with technology doesn't always work, and interpreting is already a stressful situation, so she'll take all the stress out of you, I promise.
Excellent, excellent. Now guys, if you do have any questions about engaging with your multicultural audiences through interpreting, Polaron's contact details are on the screen, and their amazing team will be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for joining us today.